So good morning, good afternoon. As Christian said before, so my name is Flávio, and I'm a PhD candidate at the University of São Paulo here in Brazil. And during my PhD course, I have been developing this research project, which is entitled Smartphones as Mediating Tools for English as an Additional Language Learning in Non-Formal and Informal Contexts. So I'm gonna give you an overview of this research project, and I'd like to first talk about why I chose to study this topic. And I think that the fact that nowadays lots of people have been using digital technologies to study languages is not a surprise anymore. It's pretty common. And of course, these people use different types of devices, such as desktop computers, laptops, tablets. But smartphones have become really important nowadays because they have incorporated lots of functions that were once specific to other devices. So nowadays, with a smartphone in your hand, you can do almost everything online. Um, and when you read the literature in the field of computer-assisted language learning, you rarely find studies focusing on the use of smartphones. And when you do, these studies are usually carried out in formal settings, not outside the classrooms to understand what people have been doing with these technologies in a more independent way. So that's why I chose to study this topic outside people's classrooms, yeah, in non-formal and informal contexts. So in order to investigate this topic, I came up with 3 research questions, and they are, what are the affordances and constraints perceived by English majors in using smartphones for English as an additional language learning in non-formal and informal contexts? And the concept of affordances is basically possibilities of action. So when I have a smartphone in my hand and I have this objective of learning English, so what are the possibilities that I perceive? So can I improve my vocabulary and grammar knowledge? Can I improve my listening, reading, writing, speaking skills? And what are the limitations that I perceive as well? My second research question is, how are zones of proximal development constructed or navigated by these participants through their smartphones for English language learning? And this concept of zone of proximal development has to do with cognitive development. So the basic idea here is that there is a type of social knowledge, in this case, the English language, that is knowledge shared among the participants of certain communities of practice, and these would be the English-speaking societies. So by interacting as a learner, by interacting with these people who speak English, I can internalize this knowledge, so I can acquire the language, and eventually I can use the language myself independently. So this is the idea. How do these people interact with the English language to acquire this knowledge? Yeah. And my third research question is, what evidence regarding the development of these participants' sociocultural autonomy is identified in the data? Yeah. And sociocultural autonomy here can be understood as being more active in a given community of practice, or also feeling more integrated into this community. So these participants are English majors. So at their universities, they have English classes, yeah? And these English classes are taught in English, yeah? So these are communities of practice that these participants participate in. So have they felt more integrated into these communities? Have they been more active because of these activities that they do through smartphones for English language learning? And in order to suggest possible answers to these questions, I've adopted a mixed methods approach, and I use a questionnaire for quantitative data and semi-structured interviews, screen recordings, and an online group chat history for qualitative data. And I analyze this data through descriptive statistics and thematic analysis. And my preliminary results are, when it comes to affordances and constraints, or the possibilities of action and the limitations that these participants perceive in these environments, they mostly perceive affordances that are related to vocabulary learning. So in this sense, they feel that they can look up new words, yeah, that they encounter in their activities online. So this is pretty easy and straightforward for them. So this is something that they perceive easily. And they also perceive that they can engage with receptive language skills. So they understand that they can use their smartphones to listen to podcasts or read online newspapers and magazines and so on. But they perceive affordances that are related to productive or interactive language skills to a lesser extent. Yeah. So going online, for example, and accessing an online a language exchange platform and actually talking to people is something that they don't do a lot. And so even when they perceive, these affordances, so they understand that they can do this type of activity, but they don't engage as frequently as they do with the affordances related to receptive language skills. And the constraints or the limitations are mostly related to technical specifications of the smartphones, such as the small screen size, which prevents these participants from reading long texts on their smartphones. When it comes to the zones of proximal development, or how they internalize or acquire knowledge of the English language so that they can eventually speak the language, they mostly acquire this type of knowledge by interacting with computer systems, with automated platforms. So they use, for example, a Duolingo or a Duolingo course, or they go online and access an ESL website. They do some activities and they receive automated feedback saying whether their answers are correct or not. They rarely engage with discussions and interactions with other people in order to co-construct knowledge in a collaborative way. And when they do engage with other people online, their interactions are mainly characterized by asynchronous and written rather than audiovisual and synchronous, as we are doing here right now. And when it comes to their sociocultural autonomy, we can find evidence of this development in the data, but I say here that it's mainly restricted to the target language vocabulary knowledge and receptive skills. So what does that mean in terms of autonomy? These participants report that they feel that they have been more active in their English classes, their communities of practice, and also that they have felt more integrated into these communities. But just because nowadays they can understand much more of what is happening around them in English in these classes, because now they can understand much more of the language. But at the same time, they can't produce a lot more, in terms of productive language skills. Which is not surprising if we consider that they engage much more frequently with receptive language skills than with affordances related to these more productive and interactive language skills. So why is this important? Why is everything that I've just said important? Because if we understand that formal education settings, such as schools or universities, are there to provide students with knowledge that they can't acquire through their daily interactions with society and digital technologies. In other words, that these environments should expand students' repertoires. So I think that it would be important for us when designing curricula to work with these students in terms of language learning. I think we should prioritize promoting students' engagement with affordances related to more productive and interactive language skills, so that in this way, we could help minimize this imbalance that they have in their engagement with receptive language skills or productive language skills. So I think that in this way, we would be helping them be more socioculturally autonomous when it comes to producing the language as well. So very briefly, I think that this is the message that I want to convey. And here are my references, and thank you very much.